The General Hospital recap for Tuesday, July 29th, shows a distraught Willow Tate offering Michael Corinthos a reconciliation, while Jason Morgan followed a Five Poppies resort hint. In the wedding reception area, Jason told Liesl Albrecht that he thought he spotted Britt Westbourne in Paris. Liesl felt it was similar to her experience of seeing Britt among crowds because she was missing her daughter and thinking about her. Jason inquired as to whether Britt was buried somewhere, and Albrecht said that she expected Britt to donate her body for Huntington's research. Britt had requested to be cremated. Liesl thought Britt become more open and thankful to Jason. However, Albrecht wished she had spent more time with Britt and became tearful as she remembered Britt dying in her arms. Later, Jason noticed Liesl's clutch and remembered Britt's luggage from the airport had a Five Poppies insignia on it. Jason conducted a fast internet search on his phone for Dubrovnik Hotels flowers and discovered the Five Poppies resort. Britt was unimpressed with the work Professor Henry Hank Dalton had sent by courier in her resort room. A man named Tomas arrived to give Britt a massage because her boss allegedly thought she was working too hard. Britt welcomed the massage, but declined Tomas' offer for a more passionate kind of stress alleviation. When Britt was alone again, she gave herself a medication shot in her abdomen, went to bed and said goodnight to Mutter. Back in Port Charles, Nina Reeves invited Curtis Ashford and Portia Robinson to the Metro Court pool, where she informed them that Willow and Drew Kane had separated. Unfortunately, Nina revealed that her own relationship with Willow had ended. Nina had no idea how Willow got out about her sleeping with Drew, so Curtis explained why he spilled and apologized for not wanting Nina to lose her daughter. Nina appreciated Curtis's desire to save Portia and knew Willow deserved the truth. Willow felt relieved that Curtis had stepped up, as she might not have believed Nina if she had come clean herself. Nina was concerned about Willow's next step now that she was separated from her mother, Wiley Corinthos, Amelia Corinthos, and Drew. Although Nina felt Drew's hold on Willow had finally been broken, Curtis was concerned that Drew would coax her into a reunion. Drew and Martin Gray managed to sneak into the Quartermaine estate in search of Willow. Tracy Quartermaine insisted Willow wasn't present and was amused to find Drew didn't marry after all. Drew continued to believe Nina was the one who told Willow about their previous romance and wrecked their wedding day. Cody Bell was just as amused as Tracy when Drew didn't get the happy ending he desired. Tracy allowed Drew to hunt for Willow upstairs, although knowing he would not find her there. That offered Martin the opportunity to question Yuri about how many visitors Monica Quartermaine received while unwell. Yuri talked about bonding with Monica, who told him about her life before joining the Quartermaine household. Martin was eager to learn more, but Tracy ejected him along with Drew. Willow was a frenzied wreck as she barged into Carly Spencer's house and attempted to flee to Wiley since she could hear him. Carly persuaded Willow to look in the mirror and noticed that she was wearing her wedding dress and had messy makeup. Willow would scare the youngsters in her current state, so Carly told her to back off. Willow insisted that Michael let her see the kids because she didn't marry Drew. Wiley heard his mother and screamed out to her, which made Willow even more determined to see her son. However, Michael dragged Willow outside and made it obvious that she was not seeing Wiley. Willow became even more desperate as she admitted Michael was correct, and even promised to return to him, so they could all be a family again. Michael believed it was too late and insisted on respecting the judge's judgment for the time being, threatening to have Willow taken away by security. Willow collapsed to the ground, crying as she watched Wiley through the window. Willow was later collected by Elizabeth Baldwin and Rick Lansing. Willow didn't have a home to return to, so Liz invited her to stay with her for as long as she needed. Willow was unnaturally calm as she determined that now that she was on Michael's side, he would come around and allow her see the children. Back with Michael and Carly, they told Wiley that Willow was sad since she did not marry Drew as planned. Wiley was concerned that his mother would get in trouble with the judge, but Michael claimed that was why Willow departed when she did. Once Carly and Michael were alone, he updated her on Nina and Drew's revelation, which blew up the wedding. Carly was outraged that Nina had allowed so much damage to occur by being silent for so long. The conversation shifted to the judge's decision, which Michael intended to follow to avoid jeopardizing his custody of the children. Michael appeared shaken by Willow's desperation and doubted he could ever let her near the children again. Molly Lansing Davis stomped into Alexis Davis's house, complaining about Cody and how correct Christina Lansing Davis was about him. After Molly made it plain that she was done with Cody, she worked on her new book in privacy and created a list of Cody-like characteristics for the hero. Molly eventually altered the character to the dumb sidekick instead. According to General Hospital spoilers, Christina's romantic sabotage may come back to bother her sooner or later, so stay tuned. General Hospital spoilers say that Willow Tate has called off her wedding to Drew Kane after his infidelity with her mother, Nina Reeves, was revealed. Drew will be desperate to reclaim Willow, and his attempts to urge her to forgive him may not go over well. Drew, on the other hand, believes Willow was to blame for gaslighting Sasha Corbin and her departure from Port Charles. Drew might utilize this information to his advantage. Drew Kane begs Willow Tate to forgive. Drew will become desperate to reclaim Willow, and he has demonstrated a willingness to go to any length to achieve his goals. Drew, enamored with Willow, would beg her to return to him so that they could move on. Willow could not see a future with Drew, and continued to hate him for ruining her life. Willow would tell Drew again that she would never forgive him, and that he should relocate to Washington, D.C. and forget about her forever. Drew Kane devises a plan to reclaim Willow Tate. Drew has realized that Willow will not accept him back readily. He recalls that she was the one who gaslighted Sasha and forced her and her kid to leave Port Charles. Drew would determine that the only way to keep Willow in his life was to coerce her into returning to him. He would go to Willow and explain her his terms, vowing not to back down until she agreed. Drew Kane blackmails Willow Tate. Willow would tell Drew that she wanted him to leave, but Drew wouldn't listen. Drew would give her one last chance to forgive him and reconcile. Of course, Willow would refuse. Drew would argue that they must do this the hard way now. Drew would threaten her that if she didn't come back to him, he would reveal that she was gaslighting Sasha and was the reason Sasha and her baby left Port Charles. Willow would be horrified and outraged, and would undoubtedly dispute it, but Drew would inform her that it wouldn't take much to persuade Michael Corinthos that it is true. He would warn her that if Michael discovers the truth, he will never allow her to see her children again. Willow would be obliged to comply and move back in with Drew. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you think Drew will push Willow to return to him? Will Drew threaten to disclose Willow's involvement in gaslighting Sasha? Will Willow succumb to Drew's blackmail? Keep watching General Hospital, which airs on ABC weekdays, to find out what happens next. Willow's world was spinning. She'd held it together for as long as she could, getting through each day with a trained grin and calm strength. But this time the pressure ripped her wide open. Something inside her erupted when she saw Michael after weeks of being apart. It wasn't wrath or sorrow, it was a twisted mass of pain, remorse, hope, and longing that all came to the surface at the same time. Her voice trembled as she told him all she had been holding back. The words came out quickly and uncontrollably, like if a dam had burst. Michael had been over on the guise of dropping off something for Wiley, but when Willow opened the door to see him standing there, her knees buckled. She'd convinced herself that she was over him. The divorce was a clean break, and it was for the best. But seeing his face again, with the same soft eyes and familiar uncertainty, broke her determination. She stepped aside, welcomed him in, and then found herself unraveling right there in the kitchen where they used to converse late into the night and share gentle, drowsy smiles over coffee. "I can't do this anymore," she said quietly, shaking as she sought for his arm. "I figured I could let go. I convinced myself it was best this way. But I miss Michael. Every day." Michael was startled. He had replayed this scene in his thoughts countless times, wondering if she still felt something, if she regretted the gap they had let to grow. And now she was standing in front of him, her defenses down, her voice raw and uncensored. He did not move. His heart was thudding in his chest, torn between racing to her and keeping back out of dread of causing further damage. Willow began pacing, tears running down her cheeks. "I believed if I held everything inside I could move on. I poured myself into work, Wiley, and anything to avoid feeling this anguish. But I lied to myself, Michael. I still love you. I never stopped. And I'm so tired of pretending I'm fine when I'm not." Michael came forward, gently gripping her arms to stop her. "Willow, breathe," he murmured quietly. "Look at me." She did. Her eyes were crimson, wild, and searching for something genuine. "I don't want to keep pretending we're better off apart," she told me. "I want us back. I want you." He drew her into a close embrace. They stood there for a long time without speaking. The home was silent except for the gentle cadence of their breathing. It wasn't an instant repair, but it marked the beginning of something that had seemed unreachable for far too long. But as their personal lives teetered on the verge of reunion, pandemonium raged in the background. Jason Morgan had been on the go, hunting down a dark lead related to the 5 poppies clue, a phrase that had appeared again in recent weeks, like a whisper from the past refusing to be silenced. He'd followed trail after trail, each colder than the last, until a single name appeared in a message tracked back to a broken burner phone. Arlen Voss. Jason did not wait. He saw Arlen locked up in a small motel near the docks, appearing as if he hadn't slept in days. The man was jumpy, anxious, and obviously afraid. He initially attempted to bluff his way out of the interrogation, but Jason was not in the mood to play games. One searing gaze and a reminder that Sonny was not around to show mercy was enough to cause Arlen to snap. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," Arlen said. "I just delivered texts. That is it." But when the supervisor mentioned the poppies again, I realized it was serious. 5 poppies. 5 crucial players. They were all involved in something. Something went wrong years ago. Jason demanded names. Arlen paused. That was a code. 5 individuals were required to deliver anything through Port Charles. Nobody was sure whether it was drugs or weapons. Each one included a flower emblem. But what about the poppies? That meant cleaning up. It meant people would die if the operation was discovered. Jason absorbed the information, his thoughts racing through the possibilities. If the 5 poppies were real and still operating, it suggested that someone had restarted an old operation, and Sonny's foes could have used his distracted state to revive it. The list of those connected to the first poppy operation was short. Jason suspected that one of them had betrayed the others, and perhaps Sonny had gone too close. That theory gained traction when he got a coded message at the safe house, a string of digits with a red poppy symbol inscribed beneath them. It was clearly a warning. Someone knew Jason was digging. Back at the Quartermain estate, Michael was still processing what Willow had said. He wanted to believe they could go back, that their family could be complete again. But in his heart, he feared that love might not be enough. He changed. The months of stress, betrayal, and grief had honed him in ways he didn't want to acknowledge. And now Jason called, informing him that something greater was stirring beneath the surface of Port Charles. Something that could endanger them all. Still, Michael couldn't get over the way Willow stared at him. That vulnerability. That is raw hope. It was the exact expression she used when she consented to marry him in the first place. He returned to her apartment the next day, holding flowers, awkward and unsure. She smiled as she opened the door, this time with less frenzy and more calm tenderness. They spoke for hours. They acknowledged the anguish, the broken times, and the words spoken in rage. Willow apologized for shutting him out during the transplant and cancer treatments. Michael admitted that he had not been strong enough to pull them through the darkness. But, in the end, they decided to try again, not because it would be easy but because not trying would hurt more. Meanwhile, Jason's world was heating up quickly. He traced the 5 poppies to an abandoned warehouse at Pier 47, where they were functioning as a shell company. He knew it was a trap the instant he stepped inside and noticed the empty containers, along with the slight hum of a surveillance camera monitoring from above. But he was prepared. Shots rang out. Jason ducked into cover and returned fire with steady precision. When it was ended, 2 men were unconscious, and Jason went out with a flash drive covered with a red poppy sticker. He took it right to Spinelli. The files were encrypted, but when cracked, they revealed old shipment logs, timestamps, and payout records. And only one name kept appearing: D. Kane. Jason stared at the screen. Drew. It didn't make sense. Drew was supposed to be clean and devoted to Aurora and his family. But if his name was linked to the poppy business, it could suggest one of 2 things. He was being set up, or he was involved in something deeper than anyone thought. Jason called Carly first. She did not believe it either. But she did not dismiss it. "I'll talk to him," she stated cautiously. "See if he slips." Jason knew they couldn't afford to wait. The pieces were moving quickly, and if Drew was involved, the Quartermains, including Michael and Willow, could already be in danger. Back at Willow's apartment, she and Michael sat on the couch, calmly watching Wiley play with his toys. For the time being, the rest of the world felt distant. They had found their way back together, not flawlessly, but with open hearts. Willow smiled as Michael kissed her temple, resting her head on his chest. For the first time in months, she felt safe. But the storm had not passed. Jason was already plotting his next move, tracing bank activities that led to a private account in Belize, a popular destination lately. As he went more, he found the 5 poppies were more than just some forgotten code from a decade ago. They were back. This time they had a specific target in mind. Port Charles was about to discover the cost of old secrets. Willow and Michael's love may have gained a second chance, but danger was closer than they realized. And as usual, Jason was racing against the clock, this time to prevent a buried past from bursting into a future neither of them had anticipated. Willow felt like she was suffocating under Drew's manipulation. It began quietly, as many forms of emotional compulsion do. Drew made no demands at first. He merely reminded her of what he had done for her. Hospital expenses. The cover-ups. He had called in favors during her bone marrow crisis. When things with Nina were about to spin out of control, he protected her. But she learned too late that those were not freely granted favors. They were investments. Drew was now ready to collect. She had attempted to keep distance. After everything she'd been through, her close call with death, the emotional toll of Wiley's custody battle, Michael's betrayals, and the fragile serenity she'd finally begun to reclaim, she couldn't afford another emotional parasite. But Drew refused to let go. Every time she attempted to flee, he pulled another string. She received an unsolicited job offer. A therapy session was mysteriously canceled. A weird call from the daycare when she was out of town, one that only Drew could have planned. It all culminated the night she approached him outside her apartment. She had not intended to accuse. She was still foolishly thinking that everything was a coincidence. But Drew did not refute it. "I'm just trying to protect what we had," he stated quietly, almost rationally. "Do you think Michael will stick around when the truth comes out?" "So what happened to Nina?" "With Jason." "Willow, you need someone who has your back. Someone who not only loves you but understands how to exist in this town." "You don't own me," she said quietly. Drew's smile did not reach his eyes. "I own this narrative, Willow. And you know how quickly things can unravel when the right people start asking the wrong questions." That's when she realized he was blackmailing her. Not under danger of violence. Not with anything visible or physical. This was more insidious. He recognized her flaws. Her remorse, her fear of losing her children, and the shame she still felt for every sacrifice she made during her illness. Drew didn't need to twist her arm. All he needed to do was be patient. Tell the correct untruth to the proper person. Allow the storm to grow gradually until she had no option but to flee into his arms for safety. Willow initially sought to maintain her beauty. She returned his calls. "I met him for coffee. Let him see Wiley and Amelia more frequently." From the outside, it appeared to be a reconciliation. Michael, who was preoccupied with the aftermath from Sonny's legal troubles and his own mistrust of Jason, didn't appear to notice. Perhaps he did, and was too ashamed to fight for her after all. She wasn't sure what stung more, Drew's deception or Michael's quiet. Inside, however, she was unraveling. Her nights grew restless. Her appetite disappeared. She snapped at her coworkers at the hospital and then cried in the locker room. Nobody truly knew what was going on. She couldn't risk informing them. Drew had eyes everywhere, and to make matters worse, he could make her appear unstable. It would just take one whisper about postpartum depression, or a half-truth about stress and previous medical concerns, for the court to label her an unfit mother. This had occurred to numerous ladies. She was not immune. Drew, on the other hand, excelled at being a devoted partner. He sent flowers. "I made public donations in her name." He informed Nina that he and Willow were working things out, and that she should stay out of it. That aspect was simple. Nina had burnt enough bridges that her quiet was easy to maintain. Even Carly, who was always protective, did not press too much. Perhaps she suspected something was wrong. Perhaps she didn't. Willow wanted to scream. She wanted to regain control of the story. But every time she considered breaking free, truly escaping, she was deterred by the prospect of her children being dragged into another custody battle. By painting her as unstable or ungrateful, Drew risks losing them completely. Then Drew took it a step farther. I think we should move in together again, he stated casually, as if he were discussing the weather. It would be wonderful for the children. And for you. Stability is important. She did not respond right away. Drew noticed her loud silence. If you're still unsure, I understand, he said with a measured shrug. But I overheard something. Interesting. Someone has been inquiring about Nina's locked files. You wouldn't know about it, would you? That threat hit like a slap. She hadn't touched the files, but she had contemplated it. She had even mentioned to Sasha in passing that certain secrets remained buried. Was Drew listening in on her talks now? Was Sasha also compromised? Fear tightened in her stomach. She nodded silently, loathing herself more with each breath. The relocation occurred a week later. Drew presented it as her idea. The press ate it up. Reunited for family. Willow and Drew find common ground. She felt sick every time she saw a headline. She wanted to expose the lies and tell the world that she was being held hostage by secrets and manipulation. But she smiled in images, clutched Amelia to her hip, and pretended the world wasn't breaking apart around her. Michael did not call. He did not pay a visit. Not once. She convinced herself he didn't know. But she knew in her heart that he did. And for some reason he was letting her go. Perhaps it was guilt. Maybe he assumed she wanted this. Perhaps he had been duped just like she had. In any case, his absence was virtually as noticeable as Drew's presence. Inside Drew's new house, she felt suffocated. Every hallway reverberated with reminders of his strength. He never yelled. Never hit. He did not have to. His threats were tinged with fake tenderness, and his control was disguised as patience. I'm just trying to help. You're stronger when we're together. This is what's best for the kids. She realized she'd been gaslighted one night while lying awake. That's what it was. She started keeping a journal, tucked deep inside the lining of a suitcase she kept in the guest room closet. In it, she documented every modification, every silent threat, every minute. She felt her liberty dwindle. Not because she expected anyone to read it, but because she needed to see her own truth written down and censored. She needed to tell herself that she was not crazy. That journal became her lifeline. She gradually began to construct a plan. Not an escape. Not yet. This would take time. But it's a strategy. She began documenting Drew's conduct. She used an old burner phone that Sasha had given her for emergencies. Drew filmed every time she made a mistake and stated something too personal. She saved every discussion in which he reminded her of what he had fixed for her. If he wanted to play this game, she would too. She began to reach out cautiously, quietly. A text to Diane Miller. A brief hazy talk with Jordan. Just enough to plant seeds. She wasn't ready to make a move, but she was forming alliances. Drew might have power. He might have secrets. Willow, on the other hand, possessed something that he lacked. Patience. She would allow him to create his home of lies. She would allow him to tighten the leash. When the time was right, she'd cut herself free. For now, she grinned in public. She clutched Amelia tight. She maintained the illusion. But deep inside, she was brewing a storm. Drew would have no idea what happened when it shattered.